I can't listen to it until it looks right, because I came from a lot of art history, which I think is extraordinarily important, again, in terms of just that basic discipline. Once you've studied, 6 or 7 courses of art history, you start to understand composition in a new way. Not just, okay, they're there and there and it makes a triangle, but you start to go, okay, you start to work creatively when you're composing. In this space, it's very interesting. I've done so much thrust. I started out in thrust, doing storefronts, and you often do thrust because you can manage to get more seats in if you line them up on the sides. You don't need so much platforming to get the audience tiered. But I very seldom have to go to the other side of the stage to see what's going on. I tend to experience it in 3 dimensions simply because I've been working in thrusts most of my adult life. So I don't have to go to the other side to know what's going on because I'm experiencing the whole thing in 3 dimensions. Directors who are new to the thrust, we have to keep saying, sit on the side. Don't sit front, sit on the side. You have to force people who are new to the thrust to look at it from the side because they're thinking in 2 dimensions. And so you make them go look there so you can look at this 2-dimensional picture. I tend to experience it in 3 dimensions at this point because I spent my life in it. But anyway, so we share the images, we define the task. Lily will be in those meetings to make sure that the budget is a primary concern. Again, that's part of that reality it's a part of the reality of the box. There's also budget, and you can never go far away from it. You can work as creatively as you will, and then you have to find the creative approach that can be accomplished in that budget. The same thing of thinking the habit of invention. I had an example once. It goes all the way to the top of the director's thing. I was doing a Stop the World, I Want to Get Off in Chicago. And I knew I didn't want to do the traditional circus metaphor for that piece. I'm not too interested in circus or whiteface. So I was finding a new metaphor that would solve the show. Also, the show is problematic because it's very misogynistic. The guy really treats women very harshly, and it's just part and parcel of the show. And so I wanted to find a concept that explained or at least accepted that, a context in which that could be tolerated. And so I came to her with some notion. I think I was my first instinct was how electrons circle around a nucleus. And I was thinking, well, that's, you don't blame a nucleus for controlling the electrons. And I thought, oh, and that moves, so that the women are the electrons and the nucleus is the central character. And my choreographer, she said, well, you can't dance that. I disagree with her, but she was not willing or could not imagine that dancing. So at the next meeting, I came back to her with 4 new concepts that solved the same problem. That is, you could dance it, and it explained or found a way to tolerate the character's ill treatment of women. And so the point is, even from the director's concept, it's like, okay, fine, I'll give you 5 concepts. I have no problem with that. When we settled on the one that in terms of that process worked, because we eventually went with a zoo enclosure for the human species, and he was the male, and this is how males behave. The opening thing, he came in over the fence like my dad's bird dogs used to do after a night out on the town. So he came in on over the fence, and the women that he is responding to and treating ill, well, they were lying around this enclosure like a seal pond all night, so that sort of biological imperative was heightened in terms of the species' need to procreate. We heightened that by way of trying to understand it and to make it acceptable. And that was something she could dance because she kind of got seals lying around, and that they were in fact women. They were examples of the female of the species. And so that I found something that the choreographer could dance. I don't know what the other 3 were in the middle, but the point is, In an extreme case like that, I was pushed to come up with 5 concepts before I found one that the choreographer felt she could dance. And all 5 of them had to address exactly the same demands. So the habit of invention, that's it. So that you just respond not with 1, but with 5. And you kind of, it starts to be pretty creative if you're finding 5 solutions to every problem. I mean, it's a good practice just when you're at home alone. It's a good practice to challenge yourself to have other views of the solutions for the project. And then it's really good when you're in a collective situation because you've got to find one that everyone can rely on. Now, I mean, I do believe in a strong director, and sometimes it's just simply, well, this is how Paul wants it, and so you have to, so that their creative challenge becomes to understand where I'm coming from, to understand my aesthetic, to, you know, it's my job to explain it to them, to make it clear. Sometimes I think they probably just humor me. Sometimes, you know, we do have a boss in this one, and along with the responsibility of sharing the vision and your solutions, there's also the privilege of eventually using your solution. Doesn't always work that way, but we know each other well enough at this point in this creative situation. It tends to work pretty well that way. Just, okay, here's a notion that, I mean, this notion was mine, the pivoting piano, which was key to my being able to have a different ground plan on each of the scenes, and it's like, oh, that makes sense, and we went to work to solve it. We didn't have to discuss it too much because it solved a big old problem very clearly. But there are always, you know, there are accommodations certainly. I mean, I have a great loathing for colored light on actors' faces. I essentially like a good, almost a television sitcom light as far as the actor's face is concerned. We're here to see the actors. We're not here to see the lights. We're not here for the sound. We're not here for the set. We don't care about the costumes ultimately, except as it affects the actor. And the audience is here for the story and their stars. They have 2 interests. They're interested in you telling them a story, and they're interested in the actor. So that, I mean, Shane and I, you know, 20 years later, he still grieves over the fact that I won't let him use any yellow gels. So he has to go around town to see yellow gels, because I just don't want to see yellow on an actor's face. It's not pretty. So there's a bias of mine that everyone just simply has to live with. I mean, I know why. I can tell you why, because it gets between me and the actor. I don't want to see light between me and the actor. I want to see the actor because of the light. So we all have our accommodations. Bill and I have very different flower arranging techniques. My set dresser, it's fine. You know, we know I do this, he does that. He gets to arrange the flowers. I accommodate I would be much more asymmetrical. He tends to be much more symmetrical. That's fine. We all have our ways of accommodating each other's contributions. I mean, it's the same way with actors. I mean, I believe another thing that I guess is really critical for me is that, and it goes with my playpen theory, which is I from early on, I love to stage. I'm very good at staging. I stage the show, and that's about 1/3 of the work. But as far as what's being contributed, for me, it is about contribution. I want everything the actor has to offer the role, I want to be on the stage. So I immediately, early on, become an audience, because I believe that what you have to give me, you know, is ultimately what a creative, what a collaborative art is. It isn't just a director's vision. If it's a director's vision, it's what one person has to say. If it is a collaborative vision led by that director, it's far richer. And certainly if the actors have invested their own ideas, their own understandings in it, there is a far greater investment, a far greater commitment on the part of the actor, and it tends to, I think, sustain a long run much better if the actor has dumped in his stuff. So I hire people who have good stuff to offer,